This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather. Ho, there's Jeff Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for today, September the 11th. I know it's not a living person and all that, which I usually try to do, but because, this is the fourth year of doing this. And this guy, I can't believe I have not done a Sports Catastrophe birthday boy on this guy. This man is a legend in the world of college football for the University of Alabama. And no, it's not Nick Saban. He spent time with Alabama as head coach from 1958 to 1982. During that tenure, he had 6 national titles and 13 conference championships, and he was the leader in wins in collegiate football history upon his retirement. But obviously, he's not anymore. He has the stadium named after him where the University of Alabama played. He was known for his black and white houndstooth hat, although he would wear a plaid one sometimes. His deep voice casually leaning up against the goalpost during pregame warm-ups and holding his bulldog game plan on the sidelines. His name, Paul Bear Bryant, who was born September 11th, 1913 in Morro Bottom, Arkansas. So he's an Arkansas boy. Huh. So, woo! Anyway, he was 11th of 12 children born, and he was born in Morro Bottom, Arkansas. His nickname stemmed from his agreeing to wrestle a captive bear during a carnival promotion when he was 13 years old. His mother wanted him to be a minister, but Bryant said coaching is a lot like preaching. He attended high school and at 6'1", he started playing on the school's football team as an 8th grader. During his senior season, he helped his high school win the 1930 Arkansas State Football Championship. Bryant actually accepted a scholarship to play for the University of Alabama in 1931. Since he elected to leave high school before completing his diploma, he had enrolled into a Tuscaloosa high school to finish his education. Nevertheless, he played end and was part of the 1934 national championship team. He would end being a wide receiver, practically. Bryant would actually be the other end of the Crimson Tide. The other one, his partner in crime, Don freaking Hudson, who would become a touchdown staple in the NFL in the 1940s. Bryant was second team All SEC in 1934. And anyway, he was selected in the 1936 NFL draft by Brooklyn when they had a football team, but he never played professional. So once he graduated from the University of Alabama in 1936, he was hired as a line coach at Union University in Tennessee. But when he was given an assistant coaching job with Bama, he left for Bama. And over the next 4 years, Bama did quite well and all that. But in 1940, he became the line coach at Vanderbilt. He was even given a head coaching job after 1941 by the University of Arkansas. He almost took it, but Pearl Harbor intervened and decided to join the U.S. Navy. So, man, he could have been coach of Arkansas. Bryant then served off North Africa on the Army transport SS Uruguay, but saw no combat action. However, an oil tanker rammed the SS Uruguay amidships. The tanker's ball made a 70-foot hole in the hull and penetrated the boat, killing 13 soldiers and injuring 50. Fortunately, though, the crew contained the damage by using a bulkhead, and 3 days later, reached Bermuda. So anyway, he was given an honorable discharge to coach the North Carolina Navy pre-flight football team. And one player he coached was Otto Graham. He was lieutenant commander in the Navy. And then Bear Bryant, at 32 in 1945, met George Marshall, who was Washington's owner, at a cocktail party hosted by the Chicago Tribune, and said that he had turned down offers to be an assistant coach at Alabama and Georgia Tech because he felt like he could be a head coach. Marshall had connections with the University of Maryland, so he was the head coach of Maryland. He only spent 1 year with Maryland, being 6-2-1. Unfortunately, there was conflict. Bryant was on vacation, and then Curly Bird, the president of Maryland who hired Bear Bryant, actually brought back a player that was suspended for Bryant for not following team rules. Bryant was not too happy with that, and based on his morals, he didn't like that. So he went to the University of Kentucky, coaching for 8 seasons, winning the SEC title in 1950. And that team actually won the Sugar Bowl against Oklahoma, preventing them from being undefeated. Kentucky, unfortunately, the final AP poll was released before the bowl games, and Kentucky was ranked number 7. Imagine if the bowl stuff was done after the bowl, like the AP poll after the polls. But several contemporary polls said Kentucky was the number 1 team in the land after it. Bryant would also help Kentucky play in the Great Lakes Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and the Cotton Bowl. And they did okay, being top 20 in 5 straight seasons. The 1950 season was the highest Kentucky ranking season until 1977 when they were 6th after that tumultuous season. Regardless of that, you like Kentucky's greatest achievement. Bear Bryant resigned after the 1953 season because he felt that the basketball team would be the school's primary sport and did not let the basketball team take advantage of his football team. Anyway, Kentucky had a point shaving scandal, which shocked the basketball world, but Kentucky still focused their energy on basketball. Bear Bryant wanted to leave for the University of Arkansas, but the school did not let him. And after finding out that Adolph Rupp was not going to resign as head coach of basketball, Bryant was more determined to leave. Regardless of that, there was a lot of things going on. So after 1954, he finally got a job elsewhere and went to Texas A&M as being the athletic director. The A&M team was 1-9 in 1954, but it was the start of the season that was huge. There was an infamous training camp in Junction, Texas. The survivors of the training camp, which Bear Bryant was using to try to mold his team into shape, were given the name the Junction Boys. And the patience was rewarded 2 years later when A&M won the Southwest Conference Championship and went to the Cotton Bowl as was tradition. And the following year, in 1957, they were looking good. I mean, Bear Bryant's star player John David Crow won the Heisman Trophy, and the Aggies were in title contention until they lost the race. Bryant actually tried to integrate the Texas A&M squad with black players, as he tried to do in Kentucky. But, of course, nobody wanted to listen to him. So after a few good years with A&M, he went to Tuscaloosa to take the head coaching position for the University of Alabama. And then Bryant was told why he returned to his alma mater. He said, Mama called, and when Mama calls, you just have to come running. Bryant's first spring practice back at Bama resembled what happened to the Junction Boys of A&M. After winning 4 games in just 3 years before Bryant's arrival, the Tide went above 500, 5-4-1 in his first season. The next season, Alabama beat Auburn and got to the inaugural Liberty Bowl. First time the Crimson Tide won a bowl game in 6 years. And in 1960, the team went 8-1-2 and took 9th in the AP poll. But they were better. In 1961, with Pat Trammell being the quarterback and Leroy Jordan being a great defender, Alabama went 11-0 and beat Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl. Boo hiss, to claim the national championship. The next 3 years were great. Joe Namath was quarterback, proving that Bama had the quarterback pedigree after Bart Starr. So Namath did his job. In 62, they took fifth. In 63, they took eighth. In 1964, they won the national championship game. They won the national championship. Despite the fact they lost to Texas in the Orange Bowl, they won the AP poll because that was done before the bowls. The Tide would have half a title, national title, as they shared it with Arkansas, as Arkansas did win the Cotton Bowl and beat Texas in Austin. So, anyway, that was huge. Yeah, the AP and UPI gave out their championships before the bowl games, before 1968. And the AP finally decided to cease operations of that practice in 1968. UPI waited till 73. The 65 Crimson Tide were national champions after beating Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. Alabama was undefeated in 1966, beating Nebraska in the Sugar Bowl. However, strange as it sounded, they actually lost to Michigan State and Notre Dame, who played to a 10-10 tie in a famous game at Michigan State. There was rumors circulating that the major polling services refused to allow Alabama as national champion for a third straight year because of Alabama Governor George Wallace's stand against integration. Somehow in 69 and 70, Bama were only one game above 500. People thought he was washed up. And he was accused of racism for refusing to recruit black players. Bryant had said that the social climate and the presence of Governor George Wallace in Bama did not let him do so. But fortunately, though, in 1969, he recruited Wilbur Jackson and made him the first black scholarship player and all that. By 1973, 1/3 of the team starters were black. Bryant would win the 1973 national title, but split with Notre Dame. Notre Dame beat Bama in the Sugar Bowl, and that was the UPI poll, last UPI poll before a bowl game. So yeah, Bama lost anyhow. So anyway, Alabama would have some awkward seasons and all that. And in 1978, they did split the national title with USC, despite the fact they lost to the Trojans in September, which should have been a full USC title. The Trojans would actually lose to Arizona State and drop to number 3. So number 2 Bama would take on number 1 Penn State in the Sugar Bowl. And one of the rarities that 1 versus 2 wasn't a bowl game. And of course, this was before the BCS and of course the CFP. Bama had a famous goal line stand to preserve the victory on New Year's Day. Bryant would win his 6th and final national title in 1979, beating Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl. Boo again, I say. In 1980, they won over Baylor in the Cotton Bowl and took 6th in the AP poll. Bryant would have him get 7th in 1981. So Bryant was just amazing and all that. He coached Bama for 25 years, winning 6 national titles, 61, 64, 65, 73, 78, 79, and 13 SEC titles. After they beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl in 1981, that was win number 315 for Bryant, which made him the most head coach. He would have had 8 wins the next season. Bryant would be a heavy smoker and drinker for most of his life, and his health declined in the 70s. He had a cardiac episode in 1977 and decided to enter rehab for his alcoholism, but resumed drinking after only 2 months. Bryant would have a stroke in 1980 that weakened the left side of his body, and then had another cardiac episode in 1981. Anyway, Bryant decided to announce his retirement at age 69, saying, "This is my school, my alma mater. I love it, and I love my players. But in my opinion, they deserve better coaching than they have been getting from me this year." Somehow, after a few tough losses, Bryant helped Bama beat Illinois in the Liberty Bowl And after the game, he was asked what did he plan to do now that he was retired. He said, probably croak in a week. Well, the good news is he didn't croak in a week. The bad news is he actually croaked within 4 weeks. And the funny thing was, the day after passing a routine medical checkup, he experienced chest pain and was being prepared for an electrocardiogram. He died after suffering a massive heart attack. His personal physician said he was amazed that Bryant had been able to coach Bama in the last 5 years of his life, given the poor state of his health. So anyway, he was even given the Presidential Medal of Freedom a month after he died by President Reagan. Of course, the Medal of Freedom is the highest civilian award. They would hold a moment of silence before Super Bowl 17, which was 4 days after Bryant's death. There was a incident with Bear Bryant in 1961 that there was a story by the Saturday Evening Post that printed an article saying that Alabama and Georgia Tech had fixed a game in 1961. Also, no, sorry, brutality in 1961. And then there was another magazine article saying the story of a college football fix that charged that Bear Bryant and the Georgia Bulldogs athletic director were conspiring to fix the 1962 game in favor of Alabama. Unfortunately, though, for the Saturday Evening Post, that was not true, and the magazine practically folded soon after. So anyway, he was 3-time National Coach of the Year in 61, 71, and 73. The National Coach of the Year award was named after Bear Bryant. In 1975, Bama named their stadium Bryant-Denning Stadium in his honor. He actually became one of 4 men to coach in a stadium named after him. Chuck Jordan for Auburn, Jordan-Hare Stadium. Bill Snyder at Kansas State. Bill Snyder Field at Kansas State University. And LaFell Edwards at BYU. Edwards Field, I guess they call it. Was named head coach of Sports Illustrated's NCAA football century team. Fair enough. He actually had a few votes in the 1968 Democratic Convention. Yeah, Super Bowl 17 maybe. What was big about Super Bowl 17, a few days after Bear Bryant's death, was that Miami had Bob Baumhauer and Tony Nathan, and Washington had Wilbur Jackson, all former Bama players. He had a massive legacy and all that. He had a nice coaching tree. He was in a few movies and all that. So he had 38 years as a head coach. He had 37 winning seasons. Surprise. He only had one non-winning season ever, and that was 1954 when he went 1-9, and the Junction Boys era, and then they went to 7-2-1 the next year. So yeah, that was amazing. He went to 29 bowl games, winning 15 of them in 8 Sugar Bowls. He's still the youngest head coach to get 300 wins and 30 winning seasons. And of course, the 6 national championships can't be denied. I mean, not even Nick Saban, I think, has that. But yeah, Bear Bryant is a Bama legend. Sorry, Nick Saban. Sorry. Anyhow, I'm going to do